More on President Obama's remarks. We are now joined here in our studios by Spencer Ackerman, national security correspondent for the Washington Independent. So the president is saying there was sufficient information to uncover the plot, but there was a failure to connect the dots. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think it's somewhat misleading because while you can endorse the conclusion that the intelligence community had the information necessary to understand that something was happening here, the actual policy implications are somewhat different than what the president explained. According to intelligence officials I've talked to, in order to put someone on the no-fly list and stop him from getting on Northwest Flight 253, you needed much more specific information about who this person was, what he was doing, and so on and so forth. And if Obama wants to say that that should be the standard going forth, that ultimately you don't need as much information to put someone on the no-fly, that's one thing. But he can't very well get in front of the American people and say the standards were like that ahead of Christmas.
Is there in essence, there keeps being this focus on the fact that the father came to the embassy and this was not picked up on. Had the father not done that, though, would there still have been enough information that if these dots had been connected, this would have been recognized?
Absolutely not. This is something that intelligence officials are wrestling with right now. The fact is that Abu Muttalib's father walked in to the embassy in Abuja and said, "I'm worried about my son. He seems like he's becoming an extremist. I can't find him, and I think he might be going to places like Yemen." And the fact is, as intelligence officials have said, according to the standards right now for stopping someone, that's really not enough. And they get, surprising as it may sound, a fair amount of information of that nature, of that lack of specificity about someone, even from family members. So it's a conundrum.
Now, the president seemed to be articulating that this is something that has to change immediately. But how realistic is it that these agencies, all of the U.S. intelligence agencies, can work together to overcome some of these remaining barriers when it comes to not only collecting but sharing the information that's necessary when it comes to intelligence?
Well, ironically, lowering the standards for putting someone on the no-fly or lowering the standards for sharing information of a greater complexity or of a greater lack of specificity might make the problem worse. One of the things that John Brennan, the president's counterterrorism and homeland security advisor, said over the weekend is that we don't actually have evidence of intelligence agencies not sharing with one another about this sort of thing. But the president just said that the dots ought to have been connected. Now, intelligence officials already talk about drinking from a fire hose of information, so to speak, that there's all this fragmentary stuff out there. Well, if there's now going to be more information shared, unless we see the intelligence agencies get massively more resources, both in manpower, in personnel, in funding, in software programs of greater sophistication, to sort through all of that, the fire hose is going to be turned up to full blast.
Spencer Ackerman, we appreciate you joining us as always. Thank you so much.